This episode is brought by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you!
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Red Raptor Writes. About a year and a half ago now, oh my god, I'm old, I was in that late 2000s era, covering the notorious Dino doc, Monsters Resurrected. You know, the one with the 273-foot kaiju Spino.
Get the f*** out of my sight before I demolish you.
Although there were a few decent-ish episodes, yeah, I gotta agree with the general consensus, that one was bad. Before we even got Monsters Resurrected though, came the 2007 series called Prehistoric Predators. Gosh, I didn't know it was that popular. I skipped it to only cover the highlights, and no comment section since has let me forget. Predators follows a similar formula to Monsters Resurrected. Each episode focuses on a different beast, but this time only covering Cenozoics. Both of these were made by the same producer, creative differences. That's probably why they came out to be so similar, though the former dropped on National Geographic and the latter on Discovery Channel. I don't know what happened in between projects. Maybe all talented creators were fired after that totally chill and not at all catastrophic time known as 2008. From what I can tell, most people view this predecessor as the better version, sticking to more accurate reconstructions and less awesome bro tendencies, so I'm interested to see. Does Prehistoric Predators live up to the hype? Is it so much better than Monsters Resurrected? Not a high bar to clear. Let's dig this up. Short disclaimer before I sink my teeth into this, I have watched Prehistoric Predators before, just a very long time ago. I had this phase in middle school when my YouTube addiction began, where I would binge either movie reviews or whatever dinosaur documentaries I could find. This was one of them, but I haven't revisited it since. And yes, this counts as a dino doc due to the inclusions of Kalenkin and Titanus. Oh, and also, I'll only be covering the first 3 episodes since they conveniently are in the same time and place. These cover the Smilodon, Short-Faced Bear, and Dire Wolf. All big Pleistocene names that deserve justice. The later 4 will be covered another day. Okay, enough chit-chat. What's there to like about Predators? Well, a lot. Rewatching this show, I was surprised by just how much care went into these 3 episodes. Creative Differences definitely produced a more mature, science-based series meant to explore the life and death of their subjects. First real point of praise from me is less awesome bro nonsense that is contemporaries. There's none of that sped up or slowed down footage that serves no purpose other than to look cool, and animals don't spend every second roaring at the top of their lungs. Yeah, because nothing says stealth like giant roars of fury.
It moves silently on padded feet and is able to remain completely motionless for hours.
There are still a few inclusions though from this era of documentaries, like the constant blinding flashes. Man, I can still feel the headaches from these things. At least no one builds a stupid giant metal contraption. I was disappointed to see that Prehistoric Predators still carry some of those annoying awesome bro tropes, but that's fair I guess. Life isn't usually an easy clear-cut black and white. The narrative couldn't possibly be as simple as Predators good, Resurrected bad. Whether this ruins your enjoyment is up to you. But overall, it seems to me like National Geographic has a much higher standard for their paleo docs than other media outlets like Discovery, History, or even the BBC. This alone probably accounts for much of the difference. Not that those competitors have never produced anything good, but on average, National Geographic focuses more on the science than the entertainment. As for what's actually done well, I can easily point to the scope of each episode. Yes, there's loads of killing and violence and action. The focus is always on some type of predator. However, audiences are still presented with loads of other information that provide a much more well-rounded view of each animal. Ask me how Spinosaurs interacted with other Spinosaurs in Monsters Resurrected, and I'd be drawing blanks. Despite possessing a giant social signaling billboard on its back, social interactions are largely glossed over to focus on the killing. In both the Smilodon and Direwolf episodes, this becomes a crucial point. Less so for the short-faced bear since it's believed to be more solitary, but this is still specifically mentioned. Each of these hunters lived together during the Pleistocene epoch in North America. Though their time ranges vary, we know there was an overlap between these three. This world in which they lived is also given plenty of attention. Both the physical and living environments are well realized. Los Angeles, back when this takes place, is correctly portrayed as a mixture of scrubland and savannas. Still warm, though not as arid today. Yeah, what a great place for millions of inhabitants. I hope that doesn't come to bite us in the... Oh, okay. I love how we're also shown many other inhabitants of this ecosystem, rather than just the main subjects. This is something I wish many other series would do. Looking at a creature's contemporaries gives us much more insight into their world and possible interspecific interactions. New world ecosystems would have looked similar to natives of the old world today. Horses, camels, mammoths, and even lions shade the region with our subjects. Okay, it's a lot more complicated than that, though the point still stands. The American lion isn't a true lion within the species Panthera leo. Rather, these massive cats descended from a population of cave lions that became isolated in North America, forming their own species, Panthera atrox. Actual modern lions are their closest living relatives, but are still considered a distinct species. The featured horse is left unnamed, if I'm remembering correctly, though online it's referred to as the Mexican horse, an invalid taxon due to its holotype being undiagnostic. Now this horse would be classified as Harrington hippus francisci, a mouthful of a name for a horse endemic to the Americas, which is strange to think. I'm no horse specialist though. Maybe a paleontologist or horse girl can unravel what this exact creature was in the comments. In more modern human history, we think of horses as part of the Columbian Exchange. Horses from the old world were brought to the new world. Well, in that evolutionary history, horses first appeared in North America, then migrated to Eurasia. When they died out in the Americas about 11,000 years ago, they only remained in the old world. If you were a good history student, then you should remember how this became the Europeans' advantage when the old and new clashed throughout the 1500s and onwards. The same can be said about camels, aside from being that militarily advantageous. Sure, they're useful, but I don't know how many Francisco Pizarro brought along. The American bison survived, but all of those mammoths, horses, camels died out. Climate change from a warming planet with overhunting by humans drove the Ice Age megafauna to extinction. One fascinating hypothesis is presented in the series that a comet or a series of comets collided with Earth around 12,850 BC. The dust and ash from these impacts cooled the Earth again for another 1,200 years, known as the Younger Dryas. The sudden change essentially flip-flopped the environment between cooling and warming, causing too much change for some animals to deal with. It seems like I'm seeing this idea more and more, though it was initially rejected. Without these walking buffets available to hunt, the large predators died out too.
You took my only food! Now I'm gonna starve!
So now we live in the boring alternate universe where I don't have to fight off lions when walking to the store. Not every herbivore went extinct, of course. North America was still full of deer, pronghorns, rabbits, and those surviving bison. Creatures able to bring down the smaller but faster prey survived as the good boys we know and love today. I know I did lots of talking already, though before I get into the nitty-gritty with our three main subjects, I'd like to give a brief overview of what they were and how well they're depicted. Short-faced bear, we can start with you. Hold on a minute, let's clear the air on this. Whenever I mention the short-faced bear in the context of this series, I'm referring to the species Arctotherium Size. This is not to be confused with the smaller, earlier species Arctotherium pristinus, or the South American genus of short-faced bears, Arctotherium, which contains several species. This term can refer to any species within the subfamily of bears Tremarctinae, even the still living spectacled bear from the Andes Mountains.
I'm just like you. I think that's true. You're just like me. Yes, I can see.
For the purposes of this video, I'm only covering Arctotherium Size. I hope this hasn't confused anyone. Thankfully, because we have bears for reference, creative differences didn't go too creative on this one. We have a big spectacled bear with proportionally longer legs and a short, deep snout. Cool. We'll revisit this stuff later, but it looks about right. I don't remember the exact size given, but the height is stated to be about 6 feet when standing on all fours, enough to be at eye level with a grown man, and tall enough to date the petty girls who demand guys be at least 6 feet tall. Then when rearing up on their hind legs, they're measured at 11 feet tall. Remember, this is when they're rearing up. Not on all fours, Jurassic Fight Club. Arctotherium wasn't on par with Tyrannosaurus. Though, a grizzly bear might be.
Problem with you is, you're completely delusional.
Next up, we have Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat. Well, one of the saber-toothed cats. This genus belongs to a whole sabered subfamily, Machairodontinae. The Machairodonts also included Dinofelis, Metallurus, and Homotherium, which only sounds like an insult from a 12-year-old on Xbox Live. Though their upper canines were not as long, they still go to show that this isn't a totally unique adaptation to Smilodon. In fact, as mentioned in this documentary, saber teeth have evolved several times and can be seen as far back as the Permian in Gorgonopsids. The Machairodonts during the Cenozoic era lived alongside Barbarophilids, a family of non-felid feliforms who also possessed these daggers. So they are more similar to cats than dogs, but not quite cats. Eventually, nature selected the true cats instead, but still you see how often this appears in the fossil record. The Smilodon genus itself contains 3 distinct species. The smallest and earliest is Escrocillis from the southeastern US. This species then evolved into the episode's main focus, Smilodon fatalis, correctly stated to be 250 pounds, and also the largest species, hailing from South America this time, S. populator, which could grow to over 400 kilograms, beating out the American lion as the largest cat ever. Escrocillis and S. fatalis would have been more in line with a jaguar and tiger in size, respectively. As far as hunting goes, Prehistoric Predators is great for some of the cast. Smilodon and the dire wolf hold up very well. For the short-faced bear, yeah, we'll get to it later. Like many of its living canid relatives, dire wolf is portrayed as a pack hunter that used their speed, stamina, and numbers to bring down larger prey. In this case, some of the large herbivores that roamed Pleistocene North America. There is good evidence to back this up. Of course, we can look at some appropriate analogs. Extant canids often hunt together, whether it's wolves, coyotes, African wild dogs, or dholes. Relatives will work together to bring down prey. So when it comes to extinct canids, this should be our default setting. But it's not just phylogeny that led scientists to this conclusion. As Prehistoric Predators showed, tons, and I really mean tons of specimens have been pulled out of La Brea. Over 4,000. Not that they all charge into the tar pits at once like it was San Juan Hill, but over the course of thousands of years, different packs would get trapped together. Plus, look at the animals on their menu. Bison, horses, camels. These would be nearly impossible to bring down for a single 150-pound dire wolf. In order to take advantage of the large prey roaming the plains of North America, pack hunting was necessary for them. Smilodon 2 is also portrayed as a pack hunter, an idea that I find myself agreeing with, although it may not be as easy to determine as with its canid competitor. You see, most cats today aren't very social. They don't live and hunt in groups. That's with the notable exception of lion prides. Usually, felids today are solitary. The subject gets even more complicated, sorry Avril, when you consider how other close relatives of Smilodon in the Machairodontinae family are all extinct, so we don't have any survivors from their lineage to study directly. If this is the case, then I have to be fair and say there's no solid evidence for pack hunting, same as I do with the dromaeosaurids, right? Well, hold on. There is some proof that points me in this direction. As pointed out by the documentary, we still have fossil evidence of these cats healing from nasty injuries, meaning that they would have survived long enough to heal. Without Ice Age vets, it seems as though these wounded individuals would have been cared for by their pack members, truly embracing the meaning of Ohana. One individual of S. fatalis has been diagnosed with having hip dysplasia, a condition in which the socket in the pelvis doesn't cover the femur correctly, causing pain and limping. With such a condition, this predator wouldn't have been able to hunt or defend itself without backup. Going up with hip dysplasia indicates that this Smilodon had help.
What is that?
Like the puppies, these saber-tooths are also abundant in the La Brea tar pits with over 2,000 found there. It's very likely that the sounds of struggling prey items attracted packs expecting an easy meal.
When do we get the free food?
Unfortunately for them, the tar conquers both predator and prey. And there was also a recent find from Ecuador, released in 2021, of an S-populator mother buried with her 2 adolescent cats. Even as her young were coming of age, they still lived and died together. I can't say that the evidence is bulletproof, we've got this totally figured out, though I think the evidence leans to one side. Smilodon did live, fight, and die as a group. And I love how Prehistoric Predators even takes it a step further, arguing that due to showing little sexual dimorphism, we can infer that these weren't prides like lions, where males are bigger to compete and dominate the females. Nah, these were somewhat more egalitarian, like familial packs. Other details were done well too, like with its proportionally shorter legs and thicker body, the saber-tooth is correctly shown to be an ambush predator, waiting in the brush for prey to get close enough. This was not a marathon runner. Rather, they used the element of surprise to catch prey. Then once the prey was within reach, Smilodon, likely with a pack, used its built, muscular body to tackle its prey to the ground. Because their teeth were more blade-like, saber-tooths had to pin their victim before engaging those fangs. If their prey struggled, then those sabers would snap. And that's it. Like you and me, they had one set of adult teeth. None of those replacements like we see so often in Dino documentaries. A carefully placed bite to the neck was probably used to quickly dispatch its meal, as this would sever the jugular vein and carotid artery. Once again, going the extra mile, the experts do bring up the idea of these hunters targeting the stomach in a disemboweling attack, but the neck bite idea prevails as a more accessible target to the sabers. Wow. That's a lot to praise. I love when the positive section takes up most of my time rather than the problems. Well, a good rant every now and then can be fun too. It is abundantly clear, to me at least, that Prehistoric Predators tried really hard to make an accurate documentary heavily grounded in reality. It's pretty conservative with its depictions, never going off the rails into wild speculation like Parasaurolophus sound blasts or something. Unfortunately, paleontology has moved past some previously held beliefs, but at least National Geographic and Creative Differences tried their best for the time. Sometimes even paleofauna we think we have a solid understanding of can still bring big surprises. The direwolf is a perfect example. Countless specimens have been found across the North American continent, over 4,000 from La Brea alone. What scientists have found is a morphology extremely similar to modern gray wolves, but larger, leading to scientists believing them to be close relatives. The direwolf even had the scientific name Canis dirus, putting them in the same genus as wolves, coyotes, and puppy babies. This has been the prevailing wisdom for decades, but was instantly smashed in 2021 with a new study that compared the mitochondrial DNA of modern gray wolves to that found in fossils of dire wolves. Researchers found that the two good boys weren't that closely related. While still being considered canines, the extinct predators branched out from the modern-day taxa about 5.7 million years ago. To reflect this change in the family tree, their name went from Canis dirus to Anocyon dirus. The direwolf nickname still works, I guess, but understand that these weren't actual wolves. Still, it seems like the many comparisons made to modern wolves are fair because of their many similarities. Some of that info on the short-faced bear also has gone into the paleontological wastebasket of ideas. An easy jumping off point is with that name, the short-faced bear. Catchy and easily recognizable, but this is something of a misnomer. Their faces, their snouts weren't really short.
No. It's not true. That's impossible!
The supposed shortness is an illusion caused by possessing a deeper skull. Maybe the tall-faced bear is a more accurate name. These guys are also considered to be strangely built for bears too, with relatively much longer legs. Prehistoric Predators makes the argument that these lanky limbs were used for long-distance locomotion. Being too thin to support the stresses and turns of high-speed chases for such a massive bear, it's been assumed to trot around looking for corpses to feast on. Hold that scavenging thought, we'll get to that one soon. One more recent look at Arctotherium legs from 2010 points out how they weren't all that special. Bears in general are pretty leggy creatures. You just can't tell since much of their legs are obscured by fat and fur. Now, this is where we see another illusion. The limbs of Arctotherium have the appearance of being proportionally longer, but this is due to their back and torso becoming shorter to accommodate their massive bodies rather than actually evolving to be leggier.
It's all an illusion.
With this new perspective in mind, conclusions drawn based on the outdated ideas must be brought into question. As I briefly stated, it was believed at the time that this bear was a scavenger, utilizing its unique posture to pace long distances in search of their next meal, usually a kill from some other predator. Then, after scaring off whoever made the kill, the bear would have its meal. Once again, we have another apex predator thought to be a scavenger, and this theory goes about as well as the others. Okay, I have a lot of memes to choose from for this, so here's a few.
You and I are not so different.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Like with T-Rex and Allosaurus, this would have been extremely time-consuming and energy-demanding to travel from carcass to carcass on foot. Vultures can pull this off because A, they're not as massive, requiring less food, and B, vultures can soar for miles without a single flap. Other evidence presented for this kleptoparasitic scavenger portrayal is a powerful bone-cracking bite that allowed them to access more nutrients in carcasses from the marrow. Then there's that carbon isotopic analysis of their bones. You know the phrase, you are what you eat? Well, it's not wrong. By comparing the chemical makeup of their bones to that of the herbivores in the environment, it's possible to determine what the short-faced bear's diet was like. If you were living in 2007, the evidence may have added up, but more recent inspection has poked gaping holes into this hyper-carnivorous scavenger idea. The earlier isotopic analysis only studied 2 specimens of Arctotherium from northern Alaska. Northern Alaska, during the Ice Age. Vegan options in this setting were severely limited, so such specimens had to fill their diets with more meat, similar to the polar bears of today. But unlike the polar bear, Arctotherium wasn't restricted to the northern reaches of the continent. Nah, these guys spread as far east as Florida and as far south as Mexico. They inhabited many different environments aside from just frozen tundra, environments where plant life was more abundant. Experts now believe that the short-faced bear would have been omnivorous rather than some bloodthirsty hypercarnivore. As you can tell, we're not dealing with another Monsters Resurrected or JFC situation. National Geographic did much better here than its contemporaries, so the problem section will be brief, really with only a few nitpicks. For instance, Arctotherium at one point is called the largest predator to walk the earth since the dinosaurs. Well, I don't know when dinosaurs stopped existing. I never got the memo. Did the government decommission all of those drones they've been flying? Okay. Assuming they mean non-avian dinosaurs, still, there have been more massive terrestrial predators. The largest Arctotherium reach about 960 kilograms, which would be about 2,100 pounds. One species of the aforementioned Arctotherium ballooned to over 1,200 kilograms or 2,600 pounds. There's also the Eocene hippo relative, Andrewsarchus mongoliensis, which is another contender for the top spot. Not much is known from this species aside from the skull, so size estimates may vary, but having placed about 2,200 pounds. And let's not forget South America's land crocs, the cebechids, the largest of which, Barinasuchus, estimated at 6 meters in length, and over 1,600 kilograms when remains are compared to more complete cebechids. Sorry Arctotus, you didn't win this one. The other negative I had with these episodes comes again with our short-faced bear. I don't know, there's just this silly scene where it has a boxing match with a giant ground sloth Megalonyx. I mean, sure, it's possible for both of them to rear up and swing their claws at each other, but it seems like a really suicidal way to hunt. Although not as large as some of its relatives, Megalonyx still swung claws, approaching 9 inches in length. That's probably why the bear had to pull a Mike Tyson and bite its opponent instead. Going on a tangent here, but interestingly enough, after their discovery in a West Virginian cave in 1796, the fossil remains of this sloth was sent as a gift to one of America's founding fathers and third president, Thomas Jefferson. Over 20 years after writing the Declaration of Independence, he wrote a paper on these mysterious fossils. So it was Thomas Jefferson who came up with the generic name Megalonyx. In 1825, the animal was formally described as Megalonyx jeffersoni. Too bad he was only the vice president at the time. America had to go through an Adams presidency first. Alien and Sedition Acts. TED Talk over, let's wrap up part 1. So far for these first 3 episodes that focused on North American Pleistocene killers, it's been awesome. The writers and paleo consultants clearly care about these subjects and the world they inhabited. Most of the information still holds up 16 years later. We see how what went wrong wasn't the fault of the creators, but just paleontology moving on. This is especially the case with the short-faced bear. I'm praying on my hands and knees that the later 4 episodes are just as good. An A- may be upon us, but we'll have to wait and see. Will the terror birds, Megalodon, Arctotherium, and Hyaenodon hold up just as well? Who knows? Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like, subscribe, and to check out my social media. See you next time.